Now, Ben, you are extremely passionate, vehement, and serious about this. So is comedy the appropriate vehicle for discussing these issues?
No, because we're now discussing the issues and I'm not being funny. My book is, I've been told, a hilarious thriller. And the issues are much, I'm not in there telling you what I think about it. I am being polite in this interview because I'm here to promote my book. So you say, well, these issues come up, what do you think? And I obviously discuss them with you. But I don't feel what I'm saying now is like the book. The book is an entertainment.
But the book is a satire about mass murder. Is satire even remotely appropriate to the subject, particularly in Britain, where we've had Dunblane, and in Australia, where we've had Port Arthur, where you've seen the impact that these sorts of things have on the community? How can you make satire the appropriate vehicle for discussing these issues?
Well, because of course I can, and you know very well you're playing devil's advocate. You don't believe in any sense at all that satire and comedy should be excluded from the difficult questions of life. In fact, quite the opposite. Comedy can enlighten, it can help, it can sometimes soothe, and sometimes it can outrage. Comedy is a high art, is one of the great muses. I don't know why the Greeks considered it less of a tragedy, because I don't consider the two mutually exclusive. The comedy of the concentration camps was high comedy. Of course, there's only a few people who could do it, the people who suffered. I would never deign to make jokes about that situation, but I wouldn't criticize people in that situation who found humor, found salvation through humor. But the word satire, it sounds like rather a dismissive word. It conjures up poor pictures of, you know, bog-standard cartoons of showing politicians with slightly bigger noses than they've actually got. Satire is bigger and greater than that. I don't think Popcorn is a satire. It's a comedy with satirical elements in it. There's insanity there. It's difficult to describe what comedy is. But comedy can and should deal in ideas.
But couldn't one argue that your wit in dealing with this issue in Popcorn is no different from, say, Tarantino's wit in Pulp Fiction, where people are blown away and it's incredibly funny?
One couldn't argue, because Popcorn is entirely different to Pulp Fiction. I've said I think Pulp Fiction's great, but Pulp Fiction is not a comedy of ideas. Pulp Fiction is exactly what Tarantino very cleverly said it was. It is Pulp Fiction. It's a penny dreadful. It's Spring-Heeled Jack. It's a cartoon. It's an adult cartoon. The mayhem is hilarious. People suddenly and out of the blue, their guns go off and they're thinking this is a new suit. This is dark, hilarious adult comedy, and I think it's very fine. I don't personally think it's something I would ever have made, because what I do is use what I feel and think. My comedy is much more cerebral.
So what's your position on gun control?
You mentioned the Dunblane and Port Arthur in terms of this. We're all very, our minds are clouded and concerned by the unknowable tragedies that we've seen. I mean, nobody could have imagined something as horrible as Dunblane. You could not write it. It beggared belief, and still beggars belief. One of the things that surprised and I found made me angry afterwards was the way suddenly the British media suddenly discovered gun control. They never discovered it before that. After the horror of Hungerford, when a man in an English town walked through with a semi-automatic machine gun and killed a lot of people, the police said what we need is tighter vetting controls. We need to vet people. We need to ask the right questions to find out who is a suitable person to own a semi-automatic weapon. And as far as I'm concerned, it's very simple. There's only one question. The question is, do you wish to own a semi-automatic weapon? If the answer is yes, then clearly you're not a suitable person to have one. If Brad Murray had heard Chief Cornell speak, he would have nodded sagely. Like it or not, the chief was right. It had long been accepted that TV shaped events, that things happened because the cameras were there, that what the cameras saw was what the event became. Now, however, TV was the event. Before, events didn't get seen without television. Increasingly, they didn't exist without television. We wait, said Chief Cornell. Let the guy have his airtime. It's our duty as Democrats, said the police publicist.
A lot of your comedy routines are based on how awful we are as human beings, the bad ways that we behave towards each other. Would you actually like to change people?
In life, I would wish that we all acted better, but that's not what my act's about. That's my personal feelings, and I'm sure you'd agree. We'd all wish the world was a nicer place. On stage, in my novels, in my plays, in my sitcoms, I am in no way, no sense, an evangelist. I have no personal pomposity in that sense. I do not consider myself an iota better than any member of any audience I've ever had. I do not see myself as a propagandist for my opinions. I use my opinions to provoke my art. If at the end of the day people say, well, I had great fun, and what's more, do you know, it was funny, I thought a little bit about that. That's great. Of course it's delightful. People write to me and say, we talked about the end of Popcorn all night in the curry house. That's delightful. But if I had set out to provoke that debate, if I had set out to tell them what to think, I would, A, have failed to entertain, and I certainly wouldn't have provoked a debate because I would have looked like a pompous pub bore. I use what I feel to express my art, and you can take what you will away from it because you are every bit as equal to me, and that's the end. No, I'm not trying to change anybody. I'm trying to express myself.
Ben Elton's Popcorn is published by Pocket Books.